but also be fearless and understand the immense price of attachment. When you are attached, you do not own yourself, you live like a robot. And when you detach, you gain your freedom, you gain your happiness.
Hello and welcome. You are listening to A Walk in the Heart, a podcast about Tantra, psychology and spirituality. Join us as we explore what spiritual wisdom can offer to people like you and me. Thank you for being here. Hi, lovely listeners. Welcome back to A Walk in the Heart. We are glad you made it back to us. I'm your host, Uriel and Blandine, psychologist, yogini, tantrika for more than a decade, 15 years, something like that. And today we'll have ourselves an episode diving into the subject of detachment, which is a big word thrown around in the spiritual context, in the new agey context. Everybody's very keen on detaching. But we wanted to get a little bit into what it actually means and what is maybe fake detachment, what is real detachment, and just give you a bit of some pointers of how we integrate detachment in our life and our practice. And give our little ounces of wisdom around this. And we hope it can be helpful for you. And before we begin and dive into the episode, we would love to invite you to leave us a good review, give us some 5 stars, thumbs up, subscribe button pushed, all of those nice things. It does help us a lot to keep doing what we're doing and to know that you are endorsing the wonderful spiritual messages that we wish to bring to you. So that being said, enjoy the episode and I'll see you soon. Welcome everybody, welcome back to our podcast, A Walk in the Heart. We are glad that you're here with us. As per usual, I'm your host, Uriel and Blandine, psychologist, yogini, tantrika, all of that stuff. And I'm here today with my co-host, Uriel Yarif. You want
Hi.
to say something about yourself?
Yeah, I want to say a lot of things. About myself, not much. No. Also psychologist and Tantra yoga teacher. Also, I'm courting Blandine at the moment. Let's see if she will give in to my insist. Yeah, I've been courting her for 7 years. Let's see if she finally surrenders to destiny.
Never surrender.
And will fall in love with me.
That is the whole trick, people. We will actually speak about this in other podcasts to come. The whole trick is just to keep courting. Don't hope for the courting to stop, is the message.
Yes.
So today we thought we come to you with the attitude that we actually sort of started this whole podcast game with. We called this podcast A Walk in the Heart because we noticed, especially within the COVID times when we all of a sudden had more time together in one place. Before that we were traveling a lot and now we were in one place together, and there's not much here to do at the end of the world in Amrita, in the middle of North Thailand, at the end of the road in some little village that nobody has ever heard of. So the only thing that is there to do is to take a swim in the pool or to take a walk in the heart, to take a walk around the landscapes here in between the rice fields, which is super beautiful, and the landscape keeps changing because they keep changing the different crops and so on. So we have to find new ways of walking and so forth. And then as we walk, some half an hour per day, then we speak about all sorts of different things. And we were like, that would be really cool if people could just hear what we are talking about, because they are quite interesting subjects to consider. If you are into spirituality, into psychology, then that would be interesting for you. So this is how it all came to be. And then the other day we had a walk together and we spoke about detachment. So we thought maybe we'll speak to you about detachment today. Is that still inspirational to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah. Inspired indeed.
You want to remind us a little what we were getting ourselves into when we were walking?
No, you told me not to prepare for the podcast, so I don't prepare.
But
And
maybe you remember what we spoke.
I remember some things.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember much, I must tell you. I
so
detached
let
completely
me start.
from what we spoke.
All right. So this whole idea of detachment became very popular. Yeah, I don't think you would hear about it with this intensity in the West 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And it's like people giving advice to each other. Well, you're having this problem, detach. And most of the inquiry into the state of detachment is rather superficial. And what we would like to do here is to explore and understand, first of all, why is there attachment? What is attachment? What purpose does it serve? The attachment first. And once we realize what is attachment and what does it serve, we can realize what is the opposite, detachment, and how we can stop the mechanism of attachment. And it has a reason why attachment is there, and we will need to substitute the function of attachment with something else. What it will be, we will discover together. And in this way, we will be able to detach and see what is the effects of that.
Yeah, maybe we can sort of start with the basics, so we just have them out of the way, and then we can get to actually the interesting things.
Yes.
So one of the basic things that is, let's say, in the for people that flirt with spirituality but don't really dive into it deeply, they would typically confuse detachment with indifference. And it's like, okay, if I somehow manage to suppress something enough not to have to deal with it, that's detachment. Or if I don't get close to things anymore and I just keep everything at an arm's length, that's detachment. Or if I just shut down towards things that bother me, that's detachment. And obviously it's not, just to get it out of the way, that's not what we're talking about. And one thing that I find very helpful and that we do discuss within the framework of our yoga schools of the Atman Federation that we are both a part of, is always this idea, okay, detachment is not indifference. Indifference is something that actually hinders you from truly detaching. But detachment always implies that you allow for attachment to occur, but you're able to let it go. It's basically having a flexibility around attachment. This is how I like to see it sometimes. It's if you have a fear of ever getting attached to anything, you will never know how detachment works. And I like another little analogy, again, I feel belongs to the baseline things to talk about, which is what our teacher Advaitananda likes to say. He's coming up with a podcast, by the way, so you might want to keep your eyes peeled.
I saw the first already. Who am I with Adina? It's starting.
Oh, awesome. So get yourself to that. Do we know what it's called? Quantum something. We'll put it for you in the description, so you can go check it out. I'm sure it's great. And he would refer to it like this capacity of breathing in, breathing out. You don't try to breathe out your whole life. That would be the detachment part. And you don't try to breathe in your whole life. That would be the attachment part. But you breathe in, breathe out. And in that way, you stay engaged with life and yet free. So I feel just as a definition to start from, this is somehow the detachment that we speak about, just to be clear.
Yes. So indifference, let's say indifference has there are two kinds of it. One indifference is when you don't allow something to touch you. You walk in the street and there's a beggar there, and the beggar is in pain, and for a moment your eyes meet the eyes of the beggar, and you see their pain, and you block out the thing inside of you that is feeling. So there is a feeling there, but you suppress it, you cover it. Yeah, this is one element of detachment, of indifference. This is one element of indifference. It is covering up what we actually feel so that we don't get influenced by it. So you can say that indifference is either ignoring something that we feel inside, or ignoring something from the outside and not allowing it to touch us. Yeah, these are basically...
Say that sentence again.
So indifference is either we feel something inside and we choose to ignore it, to cover it, to suppress it, or when we meet something outside, we choose not to let it in. This is indifference.
Yeah, and that implies ignorance.
Exactly.
Because it means you create something that you will not know, that you will not be in touch with, that you will not let your consciousness explore. So clearly you set yourself up for failure already in terms of wanting to become more conscious.
If indifference would run for presidency, it would say underneath, indifference, choose ignorance. Yeah, because it is a choice of being ignorant. Yeah, it is not just ignorance out of ignorance. You choose ignorance, so not to engage in certain emotions. For example, compassion for the beggar. You want to stay in your
or maybe feeling the pain that will then lead to compassion, because that's usually the problem. People don't have a problem to be compassionate. People have a problem to feel pain, and then to be empathetic and then feel that pain and so on. Everybody wants to be compassionate, but not to have the pain that would lead to that compassion.
Yes, exactly. And detachment involves that something touches you, you experience it, but it does not condition you. It does not control you, and it does not limit your conscious choice. So if you come home at 6 and watch television, and you watch television or you watch the screen, whatever, let's take it more general, because people have all sorts of screens now, so we cover a larger population. You come home after work at 6 and you watch the screen, and there is an element of unconsciousness there in you watching the screen. You will get attached to the screen. And then the next day and the next day at 6, you will develop a dependency in this state of relaxation and self-forgetfulness and unconsciousness that comes with the screen. Yeah, so that is attachment.
So basically creating links between things that don't necessarily belong together, but they have been, for example, in this case, experienced in the same time frame. Maybe in other experiences, they have been experienced maybe in a similar pattern, some sort of circumstances that repeat, and then we link it.
Yes, and then that linking is a normal thing. You can link and be detached. This is what we'll speak about in a moment. But you link, and that link creates a pressure to be less conscious and to make the same choice again. You become dependent. When there is attachment, the consequence of attachment is dependency on one side and unconsciousness on the other side.
And rigidity as well, I feel.
Yes.
In this little analogy that we are creating now, just to look at that a little bit more closely, I like this analogy because it's sort of in this analogy you could sort of say 100% detached person would be able to hook and unhook, create a link, and take the link out, breathe in, breathe out.
You walk home at 6. You watch the screen consciously. You are relaxing, you are enjoying, you are experiencing whatever you are there, but you don't get weak and dependent in the process. And then the next day you come home at 6 and there is no pressure from yesterday to watch the screen today, and you may or may not watch it, and you will not feel, you see, it's a nuance, it's a little dark feeling of dependency that you get in front of the fridge, in front of your wallet, in front of whatever gives you sexual pleasure, whatever gives you social pleasure, whatever gives you validation, compensation, the screen.
Comfort, yeah.
There is this. When attachment is there, you feel this cloud making you unconscious and pushing you and saying, turn off the light a bit so I can fulfill my desire.
Yeah, dim the light of consciousness.
Dim the light of consciousness so I can fulfill my desire. This is a clear sign that there is attachment. Attachment is the enemy of consciousness. This is follow the pattern that worked so many times And then you get very afraid somebody will take your screen away, somebody will take your whoever gives you sexual pleasure, whoever gives you validation away.
Yeah, I feel what is interesting, like just when you speak right now, and I feel into my own experience with attachment, detachment, dependency, addictions, all of that. And I'm a very addictive character. Those of you who know me a little bit more closely, thank God I found spirituality. Even my teacher also said this at one point. If you wouldn't have found spirituality, my God, you would just be attached and addicted to every possible thing in the world. And like one thing that stood out now when you sort of describe this mechanism with a screen, for example, and I was putting myself into the position, all right, so let's say I would have a detached experience with the screen, right? Then okay, I would sit in front of the screen, I would be conscious of what's going on with the screen, and it's like writing on water. It would not leave any mark. That's basically the thing, is that attachment leaves a mark that now will create ripples. Because one thing is you have a mark, you have a scar from living life, fine. But if you have a scar that keeps oozing, that's a problem, right? That keeps asking for something, that keeps wanting something from you. Because also, like what I noticed with this fake detachment thing is like, oh yeah, let's just, nobody touch me anymore. Like they have now this, at least in America, it's a big thing that you cannot have even the traces of the thought of a peanut anywhere close to children, because they might develop peanut allergy. But then they found actually in some research that they do develop, everybody or like such a high percentage of children develop peanut allergies because they are never exposed to peanuts, so it's like it bites itself in the butt. And I feel with attachment it's somehow a similar thing. We might be like, oh yeah, if just nothing ever touches me, okay, I had a pain from love relationships, let me never love again, I will never make this mistake again. No, it's okay, it's a scar, you live. This is how you see that you live. If you lived and you laughed, you will have wrinkles. That's just how it is, And this attempt somehow, like I feel even at the level of society, is this continuous attempt to look like as if we didn't live. Let's put another cream against the wrinkles, let's make another operation, let's train a bit more in the gym, let's do I don't know what supplement, because we all hope we are going to look like we never lived. Oh, I'm 60 and I look like I'm 20. Why? That doesn't make any sense, right? So I feel there's like something as a systemic thought of that it is bad to have scars of life, that it is bad to see that you have had experiences. But no, the problem is that you have experiences and then they don't just leave you scarred, they leave you wounded. And then as you go around with that wound, you become an expression of that wound. That unattended trauma within the being just overrides everything that you ever experience. And then somehow, okay, this is more like the psychological level of things maybe. And then, if you, for example, study attachment theory and you go with a therapist that can, create what we call healthy attachments in psychology and create a good relationship with you, then through that relational therapy, you could actually heal and notice that it is fine to attach, so to say, within a relationship, to feel you belong to someone, you have a certain connection with someone. Yeah, that's okay. We learn that's okay, and we learn to heal the wounds of having somehow been traumatized through not living a healthy attachment with somebody else. That's somehow the psychological level of it. Then you could say, all right, now I'm sitting in front of my screen, I'm having a detached experience, I'm looking consciously at the screen, it's writing on water, it's happening. Maybe it will leave me with a certain impression, but that impression will not drive me around. It will be a wonderful experience that nourishes my soul, no matter in what way, and that is it. And then immediately I felt, if I would if I would sit in front of that screen and really feel like that, then something that arises within me immediately as well, then I would probably have what I would call an integrated experience. There is a meaning for me sitting in front of that screen. And then, I have a proper screen addiction. I really need to take care not to exaggerate with phones and computers and whatnot. It needs to be very well adjusted within my life. And I notice, for example, for myself in this particular analogy, that if I sit in front of that screen, or if I get together with a certain person, or if I have that specific food, or whatever it is that creates for me normally attachments that are then leading to all sorts of unhealthy consequences, there is a disintegration within that. I wasn't meant to sit in front of that screen in the first place. Like, for me, it's very, very clear in a feeling somehow, and it helped me to discover somehow where to place detachment, because I at one point started to come into a place where it's like I'm just wrestling continuously because I'm getting attached to something. I was like, no, but where's the detachment? And you were not supposed to be there in the first place. Why are you watching that thing? Why are you talking to that person or kissing that person, or who God knows what you're doing with that person? Why are you eating that piece of cake? It was never meant to end up in your mouth. For me, it was like a big revelation actually around detachment, that for me personally, and I'm very well aware that's not the same for everybody, but my typology, and those of you who know the Kala chakra system, you know which typology it is. The integration and doing the action that is now the right action very much correlates with having a detached experience that will actually leave me nourished and not wounded.
Yes. So to take it from this perspective, now that you speak of integration, basically what attachment does, it through this forming of a certain dependency and unconsciousness, it pushes us towards more and more and more superficial parts of our being, more and more mind constructed, soulless parts of our being. The more we are attached to stuff, the less we are in contact with our depth. And the process of detachment will inevitably take us one layer deeper, many layers deeper. And when we act from the depth of our heart, from the depth of our soul, then we are integrated. Yeah, what is integration? That the part is doing its correct role from the context of the whole. That the organ is doing the organ is integrated in the body when it is doing its role from the perspective of the body. And for that, the organ, you and me, we need to have an integration of the whole. And for that, we need to be in a place deep enough inside. How do we go deep enough inside? We detach. So neurons that fire together wire together. If our wish for pleasure is connected, like you said, to the screen, to sex,
linked in that way,
and it is done unconsciously, repeatedly unconsciously, it will draw us to more and more superficial aspects of our personality. And when we are, let's say, our daily schedule is filled with unconscious attachments, what do? What we did yesterday because it's a painkiller. What we did yesterday because it's pleasant but has no meaning. But it has already such a power over me that when I don't do what I am attached to, it hurts. I got so dependent on what I am attached to that it hurts when I don't do it. It takes immense, like you say, you have to make an immense fight just not to do the thing that you are attached to, because who am I? I am already so superficial. So superficial that is, I fulfill a very, very superficial part of my being just to avoid pain, to have pleasure. Like eating. The superficial motivation for it is for pleasure. The deeper motivation is for health. The deeper motivation is for spiritual integration. Fasting, completely crazy from the perspective of pleasure. Fasting is unpleasant. It also doesn't make much sense from the perspective of nourishing the body. It does for many ways because it is very healthy, But from the spiritual perspective, people have been fasting in almost all traditions. So the fasting fulfills a very deep place inside, and guess what it creates? Detachment. Prophet Jonah comes to Nineveh and he says, guys, in 40 days you'll be destroyed. I come from another religion, but my God said your city will be destroyed in 40 days. What do you say? And they say, okay, let us fast. The entire city fast for so and so days. Very bad from the physical, very bad from... But what did it do? It brought them back to their core.
Yeah.
And they changed. They detached from food, from riches. They tore their clothes. They detached. Why was God satisfied and did not destroy them? Because they returned from this path of unintegrated, like you say, unintegrated superficiality, in order to return to their core, to their heart. And so they were not destroyed. Jonah was very disappointed. He says, God, you said you will destroy them, and you didn't. He was not detached about the fulfilling of his prophecy. He said, come on, kill them.
Turning the tables.
Yes.
I like very much that you put it into this direction. I think it's very helpful if, again, we want to come down to the practical points. All right, so how does detachment practically look like, and what are maybe sort of the false ways of trying to detach? I feel this is in general in the new agey ways of spirituality. There's always a fake version. There's always a version of the spiritual thing to do that the ego sort of comes up with. Yes. And it's like, oh, let me present you with this completely, non-detaching weird thing. And I feel it's a very good point that you make, that actually if you still find yourself in a struggle of detachment, attachment, because you still have an agenda within it, your ego still has a say in it, it will not lead you to actual, real, profound and soulful detachment. It's just not going to work. If it's sort of like, okay, I'm addicted to this thing, and then I push it away, and now look how I'm fasting from sugar, or look how I am abstinent for 9 months. Yeah, but you didn't solve nothing inside of you. It's just remaining a back and forth between the angel and the devil on the shoulders, or between the darkness and the light, between, even if you want to go into a psychological sense, between the id and the ego, or even the super ego and the ego, or the top dog, underdog, however you want to call it. And it remains this polarized thing. It remains this, okay, a part inside of me says you should fast, and a part inside of me says you should eat as much candy as you possibly can. Yeah, and then there's your soul. And what does your soul say? And real detachment will lead into the soul, and the soul will lead to real detachment. And I always find it super interesting how actually and for me, again, integration is doing this a lot, when I come to look at the situation that is back and forth between attachment and detachment, and I'm trying to make sense of it. And when I look back at it from the level of the soul, really considering, how do I feel in the depth of my being about this? What is the lesson in this? Where's my where's that which will remain after, I don't know what, this situation, this life, this however, that which has either a longer lasting or even an eternal nature to it. What is its engagement into this? What does it want from this? What is the impulse that the soul is setting with this particular situation and this particular lesson? I am always surprised how easy it is to detach. It is so easy when it's not this struggle, when it's not this apparent thing that detachment and attachment are sort of antagonists with one another. Not at all. The attachment is part of being alive. It will happen. You live, you have experiences, you're not 100% conscious of everything all the time. You're not seeing creation from a viewpoint of eternity yet. You're going to get attached. Fine, no problem with that. Detachment is not the antagonist for it. It's not where you will then run to in order to survive from the horrible attachments. No, I see it more like the attachment is like a pointer. It's like, oh, look, Look how I got myself entangled into this experience. Look how I linked up all sorts of stuff. Interesting. It's more like a curious experience of self, somewhat. And then when it returns to, okay, wait a second, and what's the story of the soul in this? Detachment comes natural. It's like, yeah, well, my soul never had an interest to binge watch this reality TV show for hours and hours on end. It was never a thing. This was never on the menu of my soul. Okay, so then, you notice you've been eating trash, and you get up and you stop eating trash. It's very simple.
Yes. Yes, it is. You see, from the perspective of an awakened consciousness, which you've done now 15, 17 years of spiritual practice, so you can access your soul, and also you were just being able to do that as a child, let's face that. But you have a certain access to your soul, so when you are accessing a high level of consciousness or a very deep place and soulful place inside, it's obvious. I mean, you become free from this pre-programming of attachment. It is very correct, like we said it before. The deeper you are, the less influence attachment has on you. And the more attached we are, the more we go towards the superficial part of our being. Now, the attachment itself is, as you somehow mentioned, it is a consequence. It is a consequence of an unconscious experience. And the more intense the experience is, be it pleasure, be it pain, yeah, this is where experiences kind of range between these two. Mm-hmm. The more intense the experience is an equation. The amount of intensity, and then whatever of that intensity was not covered in consciousness, that will produce attachment. And then that attachment will create the inner robot inside. It will make us follow some instinctual, robotic, predetermined, unconscious, unintegrated behavior. So we had a trauma, somebody shouted at us, and it was very intense, and it was in front of everyone, and it broke us to pieces. And when the experience was there, we froze inside and kind of tried to get indifferent and chose ignorance, and we were completely shut down in that experience. And then we didn't think about it, we didn't analyze it, we just suppressed it somewhere. We had a huge intensity. It was like the most intense experience we had this year, huge intensity of pain, and we did not digest it, so we are not conscious of it, and then all that amount of energy will create a conditioning inside of us that we can't control. So when we think about that person, we go and binge. And when we think about, let's say, we took responsibility and failed, and then our boss or somebody in the group really put us down in front of everyone. And then we will be so attached to not taking responsibility, it will control us. It will take over us. And we will move from a deep, I am responsible, I want to contribute to the world, me, into, I don't care, I just do little things that I'm told. A much more superficial me. And then if we want to detach from that, yeah, just to put it, because very often people, attachment is only with pleasure. No, attachment is also the aversion of pain. So if we want to break that, okay, we have a talk with someone, we first bring our awareness, okay, I had this intensity and I became unconscious, and since then things are going much worse, then you have to face it, and you go, okay, if we want to face and we want to detach, either we do what you did, if we have a spiritual practice and so forth, we can go very deep in our soul and contemplate that situation from a very deep place, and eventually it will become pure. Or we bring awareness to the mechanism, says, well, why can't I take responsibility anymore? Well, I got so attached to this kind of feeling of safety. Okay, I feel safe when it's not taking responsibility. And then you break through that. You go and you do something very responsible. Yeah, you take a choice of doing that, and you're shivering and shaking and so forth. And you courageously do that, and gradually these mechanisms of attachment, they'll break open. And you will return from the superficial, I don't take responsibility on anything, into a deeper version of you, I am responsible. And from there we continue detaching into a deeper and deeper place inside. So it does work. You are attached to food, fast, but it's not enough to fast. You have to be conscious, if you really want to detach, to be conscious of the mechanism and to reveal what is happening inside of you as you detach. Yeah, this is somehow the mechanism. You fast, and then you don't just stay unconscious to the fasting, which will make you again have just aversion to fasting, will make you panic, and then you get attached with the aversion of fasting, which will make you binge. But the fasting will discover, if you are attentive, a deeper you. And as you get established into the deeper you, and a deeper you, and a deeper you, you discover, I don't depend on almost anything. Sure, I need to breathe and eat and go to the toilet. But as you go very, very deep inside, it is remarkable to discover, and we've both done these retreats and so forth, but it has always been amazing for me to discover after 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, 40 days of silence, and sometimes really almost not seeing anyone, and not having barely books, but having very little interaction with the outer world, discovering this tremendous happiness of being, and discovering how in the depth of our being, we don't need validation, we don't need the screen, we don't need basically anything. The body has its needs, let it be. It's not difficult to fulfill. Even in prison you fulfill your body's needs. It's not so difficult. But beyond that, as we go through this process of not searching happiness outside, but searching happiness by going deeper, by detachment, we discover in the depth of our being a tremendous happiness that does not depend on anything. And with that happiness and with that detachment appears a great freedom in the social world, in the professional world, because the happiness is no longer dependent on that. As we are deep inside, happiness is a given. Yeah, from a certain depth of the soul, happiness is not 100% stable, but there is a certain margin of happiness that's just all the time pouring, because I am who I am deep enough. And from that state of detachment, sure, you interact with the world, sure, you fall in love, sure, you make money, sure, you make company, sure, you have success, sure, you have failure, but the happiness does not go up and down with life's issues. Happiness is a given. You are not afraid if you fail, or if you break up, or if you don't have something to eat, that the happiness will go away. And that revelation allows us to live in this world as free human beings. This is the essence of detachment. If we follow this from one level of personality, the non-responsible me, the responsible me, the soulful me, the deep, deep soul me, and so forth, if we go deep enough, happiness becomes a given, and we live this life out of freedom.
Yeah, and not even just happiness, of course. Happiness is a big one, and we're all interested in it. But basically, any godly quality, anything that you might be striving for. And what I always find interesting is if you look into the social realm, and that's, I mean, I guess we all agree that, you know, you will always find messy stuff there. But even the stupidest motivations, they have somewhere deep in there a soul calling in them. If you are completely power drunk, you're basically seeking out the eternal, power that is alive, the enigmatic power that belongs to the soul. If you are, I don't know what pleasures, you're seeking out the bliss that is a promise within your soul. It is a given. Like, no matter where you're stuck within this creation, you are actually just following a calling for discovering yourself and for discovering the godly nature within, basically.
Yes, indeed. And you discover that your peace does not depend on anything. Like, the more attached you are, the more every inner state depends on something outer. Yeah, this is how you would define also the level of superficiality and the level of attachment. You have a certain inner configuration inside when you watch the screen, but you depend on the screen. You cannot have that inner configuration alone. You have a certain inner configuration with your lover, but you cannot replicate it alone. The deeper you are inside, the more you detach, the more you can create, modulate, control your inner state at will, and have peace, happiness, a tremendous power, be tremendously enthusiastic by your own nature. This is a sign that you are deep and detached. How do you know if you attain detachment? Because your happiness, your enthusiasm, your inner peace, it doesn't matter. You're in the train, you're in the bus, you're in a demonstration, you're in a situation where people are tensed, or you are meditating, you are quiet, you are that. It matters less and less. Detachment is the absence of dependency from the outer world.
Yeah, now the problem is always when you try to create a spiritual bypass, as it is called nowadays, quite fittingly, if you ask me. And you try to, like, this is what people try to do. They try to go what you always like to call the short, long way.
Yes.
They try to find a shortcut. All right, so it's about detachment. Let me pretend detachment on top of it. And it removes you further and further from the actual detachment. Because you cannot go into detachment with the motivation of being detached. And then you will not have troubles anymore. No, actually detachment, and maybe this can be our like final moment somehow to talk a little bit about, okay, practical pointers. So real detachment starts, from my viewpoint, with acceptance of the situation as is. You cannot try to detach from something that you haven't fully accepted and embraced. And I like very much how they put it in nonviolent communication and the compassionate communication branches that grew from it. That they say, look, if you really want to perform a profound compassion and acceptance of self, you need to accept yourself exactly as you are right now, as if you would stay like this forever. Sure, you want to transform. Sure, you might not love what is going on right now, but you accept it fully as is. You just take it as a given. You stop resisting. You stop paddling against it. When I was a child, I grew up in the northeast Germany, and we would have a lot of these lakes that are basically just dug up, like somebody came, needed some sand, dug a hole, it filled itself with water in time. And that's how you get a lake. And these sort of artificial lakes, they have these sudden, something in the flow might be breaking and then some bubbles come up and whatnot. And there's all sorts of fairy tales around these particular lakes that are so many in the area where I grew up because, stuff appears on the surface all of a sudden. It's weird. There comes up a big bubble. What is that? And also there appear these, how you call them, whirlpools within the lakes quite easily, and you can't see them very well. That's why it's not so much recommended to swim across such a lake, because you might just, in the middle of it, there might be a whirlpool, and then you just get sucked into it. And we were thoroughly warned as children to be very attentive and to never just swim across such a lake and to only remain in the areas on the side and so forth. But then also we were always taught, if you do end up getting sucked into a whirlpool, that you shouldn't resist it. You should just relax. Just take a deep breath, relax, and let it take you down. And then it takes you down to the ground of the lake, and then the whirlpool ends, and then it lets you go, and you just swim up, and you have enough air for that. But if you reach for air, and then you struggle, and you fight it, and you're trying to resist, that you die. And many people do die, or did die at that time from this sort of circumstance. And I feel it's very similar when it comes to practically looking into, all right, how to achieve a state of detachment. First of all, you need to acknowledge where you're at. You need to acknowledge that you're attached. You need to acknowledge that you have no idea what you're doing there, that you don't even know how you got yourself addicted, that you don't even know how you got yourself involved in I don't know what codependent relationship or whatever it may be. But it requires first things first, full of compassion, full of honesty and willingness to see things as they are, full of acceptance to just embrace exactly what is going on. And then what do we do next?
Well, the second ingredient to polarize the acceptance is a total and absolute determination. So, to understand, like you said, it is the short, long way, it is a dead end. Attachment will lead to suffering. And detachment, even if it involves an investment of consciousness, a certain inner conflict at times, and a certain resistance for immediate satisfaction or for immediate security when it's attachment related to aversion, we need to understand that happiness, fulfillment, integration, a meaningful life, and attachment, they don't go together. You see, when I catch myself attached to something, I can't stop thinking about this. I come to do my meditation or my prayer. I can't stop thinking about, normally I'm attached to Mahasiddha. I'm attached to the school. Being a big school with a lot of people, we have a lot of trouble. This trouble enter, I'm attached to the school, this trouble enter my mind, I try to pray, I try to meditate, and I cannot. Why? Because I'm automatically attached to the school. And as long as I am tolerant of my attachment, my mind will stay agitated. I will not be able to meditate, I'll not be able to pray, and I'll be a lousy yogi and a lousy teacher, very bad for the school, very bad for myself. So when I come and I catch myself in this place, which is very frequent, yeah, because I am very attached and I get very frequently attached and agitated because of my attachment, I evoke, after this state of, okay, acceptance, why am I so agitated? Because I'm attached, let's face it, I'm attached to Mahasiddha. So, I evoke inside of me, after that state of acceptance, a total determination. And I pray to God, because I believe in God, and I say, God, I'd rather be dead than attached. I don't want anything to stand between me and my prayer, between me and you. And if it's a meditation, between me and the object of meditation, or the total silence of it. And I contemplate with determination how I am not willing, after the acceptance, I am absolutely not accepted. I am bulldozering with all my power that attachment. I contemplate with intensity that I will die one day. Because the universe is built in a very intelligent way. We always lose everything that we have. It's very wise. So that we get this one lesson of detachment is very important. Like you said, we get attached, detach, attached, detach. We have, we lose, we have, we lose. We have all the cruelty of the world, all the cruelty of death, all that put on one side. There's something more valuable on the other side. The lesson of detachment is more important. So I get completely determined and say, attachment will lead me nowhere. I don't need to be attached to Mahasiddha in order to take care of it. And as I intensely visualize my death and the ending of my relationship with Mahasiddha, because that's what's going to happen when I'm going to die, with that tremendous determination, the process stops. And I know the attachment stopped. For today, it will return. Today's Wednesday, it will return on Thursday. Fine, like you say, attach, detach. But for today, or for the next hour or two, maybe for the entire day, is gone because I'm not agitated anymore.
Yeah, I want to comment a little bit on this because I think this is exactly the point where you could fall into like a false detachment if you don't do this stage right. Also, if you don't do the acceptance stage right, and you fall into victimizing and wailing around about, I don't know, yes, it's like this, yes, I'm accepting it, but actually you are completely resigning in front of what is going on. You don't stay with the knowledge and the clarity that you do have a choice, and that even though things are as they are right now and they present themselves in a certain way, you still have the responsibility of a choice in front of them. Yeah, that could be sort of the pitfall at the stage of acceptance, to get passive and wailing and weird and confuse that with an actual acceptance. And then at this level that you're describing, because it's true, if you want to do attach, detach, but you never do the detach part fully with determination, and you're like, yes, look, I'm very attached and I accept that I'm so attached to things, and then I'm thinking about detaching, and that's it, but you never really do it. You're never like, all right, how would that really look like, and the depth of my being, if I'm really honest about it? Because basically the ego is just us not being honest about things. It's just us not being truthful and saying, hey, I'm gonna die. I can't control the world and people around me. I can't always have it my way, the way that I think is right. I know nothing about right and wrong. If I cannot go to that level of just understanding, hey, sweetheart, it's a dream. You are dreaming, you are someone with a certain influence, with a certain thing. You are dust in the wind. Relax yourself, like in that beautiful song. Mm-hmm. If you never do that and you don't play that out inside of your inner universe, and you don't also feel the pain of that, like, whoa, I am attached, because if I just think of my death, I'm freaking out, right? It's something that parents very often face. Now, all of a sudden, you have to think about it. What's going to happen to your child if you die? You need to think about it, and maybe set up your will or what have you, and find someone to take care of your child and all of that stuff. So yeah, I feel it's very important to underline, okay, the detachment phase, it needs to happen with determination. And in the same time, if from that, again, you're just growing yourself an aversion to attachment, which you are attached. Let's just face it the way it is. All of us are. We live, we get attached. But if you just develop an aversion of admitting that you are attached, you find yourself back on square one, or even square -2, because you sort of lose the touching point of moving out of that attachment. So I just wanted to add that.
Yes. So basically, to extract what you were saying, the strategy of attachment holds in it this assumption: I will have a certain inner state by securing outer circumstances. This is the essence of attachment. I will feel love and enthusiasm and flattered by fully controlling my lover. That's how I know how to get peace. I put a leash around my lover. I am clever, manipulative, strong, frightening, nice, tempting. I have my strategies. I put a leash there and I'm fine. Yeah, attachment always involves leaning on the superficial, leaning on the external world. And eventually we will not speak about this probably today, but there is also attachment to the inner world, because we have the innermost world. And detachment is leaning on the deep. I will create a state of enthusiasm, important, love, important, confidence, not flattery, but confidence, by assuming certain inner qualities inside, by becoming very deeply aware of myself, of my heart. I find love within, I find enthusiasm within, and then when I find it within, I am free outside. Now contemplate all these great saints and masters. They all go through tremendous austerities. Pedro del Alcántara, eating once every 3 days, sleeping only 2 hours every night, sitting for all his life. He could not sit otherwise, because he would fall asleep. What tremendous difficulty. Saint John of the Cross wearing I don't know what that was painful, some kind of metallic things that were painful. Muktananda living only if they would give him food. He would never ask for food. He had to eat mud once because he was so hungry. He would pass days without eating because he would not beg. Why would they go through? These are, if you read their writings, at least for me, the wisest, most accomplished, most admirable people in the world. Why did they go through such difficulties? They were respected. Saint Pedro de Alcantara, he was, the king wanted him in his court. He could have had anything he wanted. He was the consultant of the king. He could have had anything he wanted. But he chose to eat once every 3 days a little bit of herbs and water. That was his dish. And sometimes oats. Yeah. He was really celebrating.
Or Gandhi sitting in jail and fasting and fasting.
Exactly.
Fasting.
They could have chosen a much easier life. But they were wise. And they understood, I make the outer sacrifice and I awaken a light and a joy inside of me, which is for most people unimaginable. Now, this gift of detachment is something that people normally, they cannot imagine how much happiness we have inside, how much happiness and freedom and peace and vital energy and enthusiasm and inner freedom. You have wings inside. We all do. But to get to that place which has the wings, we need to sacrifice the superficial for the deep. They were doing all those tremendous austerities, and you and I, we have our little austerities from this life, but I can say from my personal experience and from you and from my friends and colleagues and especially from my teachers, that these little apparent sacrifices, well, they are real sacrifices, they give such a tremendous happiness, because real detachment reveals a light inside, reveals a being of light inside, which is so free, which is so extraordinarily happy, which lives in constant meaning and purpose and service. It is the joy of joy to live in this tremendous state of detachment. There is just no words to describe it. That which we are, and which is, for many people, stuck in the body. But in reality, if you detach, the body itself becomes like a nectar to that which we are. That which we are will be revealed through detachment. And all austerities and all difficulties that are done correctly in a spiritually integrated way, according to all that we've said here and more, all austerities are as insignificant price to pay in order to discover this tremendous light and joy which resides in the depth. Attachment covers it, makes it inaccessible. Yeah, our guide Greek, he says it is like you have a cell phone stuck in concrete. You have a square of concrete and there you have a cell phone. Your real self, your soul, whatever you call it, the depth of your being, which is extremely happy, fulfilled and creative, cannot be accessed because there is all this concrete around it. What is the concrete? The consequence of attachment, the robot that attachment creates.
Let's wrap up on a practical note. Let's just sum up once more for the listeners the practical points of, let's say, just starting to play with detachment. Because again, I don't suggest to sort of, okay, let's be detached, like a Braveheart speech or something like that. But how do you start to come in touch with this very natural inner state that anyways belongs to the soul? The soul knows it's free, it knows it's passing from room to room, from life to life, like in a beautiful gallery. The soul doesn't have a problem with any of this. So coming in touch with that, we said already, to learn to accept, to learn to embrace things the way they are. We also said to have determination to actually experience detachment, to allow for the breathe in, breathe out, because mostly we are just breathing in continuously and we never allow to breathe out. There's lots of fear connected to that, lots of patterns, conditioning, so on. It might even be helpful to look at those, to see, okay, what creates this fear of letting go of this particular thing? If you would never have sex again in this life, why is it so horrible?
Yes.
Oh no, but and I can already hear all my friends that have that particular problem. No, but I'm a tantric and I'm supposed to have sex and yeah, but not like that. You know, you're not supposed to have sex like that, not from that place, not in that way. Cut it so that it can really grow, like you prune a tree, you know. And then that way the tree has the most amazing fruits and the most amazing capacities, because it really comes from the depth of its own nature. Is there more practical points that you want to add that people can play with?
Yes. So the contemplation, as we mentioned somehow implicitly, the contemplation of the moment of death. Personally, I'm very, very attentive to my time. And yet every day I take between half an hour to an hour, sometimes 2 hours, to contemplate my death. And the gift that I receive from this contemplation, which is not easy, I do it in a very believable way. I am like, oh my God, I'm dead. Oh my God, this is the last time I embrace Blandine. This is the last time I look in her eyes. These are my final words. Every day, sometimes with Blandine, sometimes with my mom, sometimes with other people, but every day I live that very, very intensely, because it gives the gift of detachment. And we have these lectures about death, and we have certain techniques that we teach a little bit.
We can link the YouTube channel and the death lecture.
Yes. We have certain techniques that are done to contemplate death. This is a great experience. And then the second thing is not to be afraid of friction. When you see you are attached to the screen and it's 6 o'clock, you just don't watch the screen. You say to yourself, watch me, you robot. I'm not watching the screen. Oh, you get so angry, don't you? You're very agitated. Don't be afraid of the friction of it. People are so afraid of having a bit of inner conflict, a bit of, yeah, if I'm attached to this, I don't know, the other day, something happened, I couldn't eat, no, oh, say, okay, then I'm fasting today. I never did this before until last Wednesday. I'm fasting. That's it. I don't eat. I was always prepared to fast. Fine. Don't be afraid of the friction of not having the thing that you are attached to. When you are just, yeah, watch me. I'm not having that. I'm not calling that person. I'm not doing this. I'm not, whatever it is that you're attached to, is the screen, is the food. You know what? I'm not. I have the cake here in front of me. I'm not going to eat it. Watch me. Don't be afraid of this instinctual robot inside. Your inner world, let me reveal to you, or at least the assumption, play with this thought. Let me not be in this place, but play with the thought that your inner world is absolutely not a democracy. There is one king inside, and it's you. You don't need to please anyone, or the public opinion, or the majority, or nothing. If you decide not to eat this cake, nothing in the world can make you eat it. If you decide not to watch the screen, nothing in the world. If you decide not to go and do your sexual addiction, be it porn, be it dating, be it, I don't know what your sexual addiction is, flirting. If you don't want to do it, you don't do it. And then you can watch how all the resistance comes. And don't be afraid of it. Freedom is worth more than all of this. Yeah, there is a quote from Nietzsche, and he says, there is no price too big to pay for owning yourself. Owning yourself starts with detachment. Be super determined. Of course, with common sense, not now to destroy your body and your emotional world in the process. With common sense, with moderation, but completely fearless. There is no reason to be afraid. Use moderation, do it with moderation, without hurting yourself, without hurting your body, without creating traumas and all that, but also be fearless and understand the immense price of attachment. When you are attached, you do not own yourself, you live like a robot. And when you detach, you gain your freedom, you gain your happiness. Be determined, don't be afraid of the friction. Just watch the inert freedom. If you don't want to do what you are attached to, don't do it. And be willing to take the friction. You say, yes, the rest of my being, you can freak out. I don't care. I watch you freaking out. And in that, there is an owning of oneself. It's difficult, but it's worth it. This is the price of freedom. People are so concerned about outer tyrants, but we live with this inner tyrant, this mental agitation. these addictions that we have continuously. Try to live a day in silence and see.
I would want to add here, it's nice, this analogy, that it's not a democracy, inside there's a king, but actually that king is a benevolent king, and it is, just like a good parent that is able to say, no, sweetheart, we are not eating more cake today.
Yeah.
But you, as you kick and scream, I'll take care of you. I'll explain to you, sure,
Exactly.
it's, with sugar, it makes your teeth break, it's not good. Want you to be healthy, want you to be happy. That's why this choice, which is non-negotiable choice, but I'm very willing to talk about it with you, to explain to you.
Yes.
Not in a democratic style, but in a benevolent parent, benevolent king kind of style.
Yes, we balance each other with this fire and water, hot and cold. Yes, it is very true. I couldn't agree more. We can be extremely firm and yet love and accept our weaknesses, but we don't need to subordinate to anyone and anything. Even if it's just 5% of our being that is light, that is luminous and conscious, it can easily control all the rest if we are sure.
And what I've experienced within my inner world, it's everything that arises from that lightful place. It doesn't even, the word control doesn't even fit, even though it does control, like, let's say all the other elements are subordinated to it, but it doesn't even need to control. There's not, the soul will not now, come in and fix things and stuff. No, you just connect to the soul, and you're just like, oh yeah, sorry, I was into a completely different direction, and now I remember things are actually different. I'm not addicted to this series. If I will never watch it again, nothing bad's gonna happen. If I will never eat chocolate cake again, absolutely nothing bad's gonna happen. I will not suffer from a lack of pleasure and love for myself because I will never eat chocolate cake again. It's just not correlated. And that spark within the soul, that somehow directly reveals it. And then detachment and the practice of detaching from things and sacrificing certain habits and so on, it doesn't even hurt in any way. It's just like, yeah, okay, you know what, we can do without this because there's absolutely no need to it. And then when that little thing arises inside that says, no, but let me explain to you why it is so important that you should blah, 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 blah. Yeah, don't start to engage with that. Understand that you are free of mindless flirting and fantasies of crushes of I don't know what. You are free of food. You are free of the screen, of habits, of negative emotions. You are free of being aggressive to other people, of bossing people around. You are free of subordinating. You're free of all of that stuff. It's just none of that is written in your story. It's just not. It's just a total invention of that. And we are like, as if saying, no, but because of that now I need to have all these sort of inner reactions. And somehow the real detachment, it is like, inside of my being, it just feels like a switch of perspective, which is like, oh no, I forgot this entire time I'm eternal. I forgot I'm omniscient. I forgot I'm omnipotent. I forgot I'm everywhere all the time, united with God. I forgot I'm pure light. Okay, sorry guys, I was off on a rant. That was a tangent. Let me return to the real thing, which is I am the direct expression of the godly essence of everything. And from that, none of this stuff makes any sense any longer. That I have to watch this, or I have to act like that. Then the next argument is usually, yeah, but what if I'm not yet enlightened? Doesn't matter. Unrelated. Just another argument to act in ways that don't serve you, basically.
Yes. Good. I think we have a good. We can conclude.
So, what's your final call to action on the subject of detachment? Detach from trying to detach.
No, my call is to be extremely determined, there's two things to be determined of in this world. One is you need to be determined to love more, and essentially to love the universe or to love God more. And the other side is to be as determined to detach and to renounce the world. If you have these two and you really want these two, you will be free. You will be utterly and completely free. And the treasure that lies inside of you is worth 1,000,000 billion times more than whatever anything outer can give you. It is, let's say, hidden. Exactly because of attachment, people cannot see it. But this podcast and spirituality and all saints and masters, they stand as a testimony that it is like that. Attachment covers the light inside, detachment uncovers that light. Renounce, detach, love, and you will discover something inside of you that is constantly happy, fulfilled, integrated, creative, enthusiastic, full of life. This is the gift. No, nothing external will give you that. 100% sure. I have not seen anything that will make you constantly happy, peaceful, enthusiastic, and lively. Nothing. But detachment and love will. So pursue that and have that in the first place in your life. And this is like the first landmark. Understand these ideas. Fight with them, wrestle with them, until you have this very firm decision. This is the starting point. Once you realize, okay, this is actually the match of your life. The match of life is learning to detach and learning to love. These are the, like Kabir said it, the two pillars, renunciation and love. If you understand that this is the match of your life, put all your energy there and you will succeed. So this is the first stage. This is my message, is to understand that this is where we are going and that real happiness doesn't hide anywhere else. It hides there.
My call to action, as you like to put me into the watery corner, is to contemplate the wave on the surface of the ocean, to contemplate ourselves as the wave on the surface of the ocean of life and light, by the way.
By the way.
The profound realization that there's nothing to do, that there's nothing to control, nothing to push, pull, that nothing can be done for you to be but a wave on the surface of the ocean. It helps me personally very much to understand detachment. The wave on the surface of the ocean is not making a fuss about wanting it a certain way, of wanting to get a certain pleasure, a certain comfort, a certain this, a certain that. Oh, but my spot is way worse than the spot of the wave over there. Ah, but why am I a little bit pointy on top and that wave over there has a bit of foam? Ah, but be the wave. Relax. That's all you gotta do. And when detachment appears within the being profoundly, because we get in contact with ourselves, we allow ourselves to touch the soul and the more profound nature of our being, like you said before, then that feeling of the wave on the ocean, it appears. That wave is not trying to not roll ahead towards the shore, even though it knows that's its end. The wave is not having a certain preference. It doesn't judge itself for the way it looks or the place it has on top of the ocean. It is just being a wave and enjoying the ride. And it will not resist to do what needs to be done. And it will not resist letting go of what needs to be let go of. I feel this is a very helpful image for me. When you detach, you become that wave. And you will allow God, the Supreme, the highest, however you want to call it, the universe, to just slip its hand inside of your empty vessel and guide you around and make amazing things happen through you and simple things happen through you, and you'll just enjoy and witness all the magnificence of what is happening, no matter if it fits into your little idea of who you're supposed to be or if you find it comfortable or not. Yeah. All right, big subject of detachment, probably more coming about it your way soon. We hope you enjoyed our little talk today, and we would like to remind you that it's very helpful if you give us a 5-star review, super thumbs up, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. Give us all the love on the different podcast providers, YouTube, wherever you might be listening to this. It helps us to do more of these things, and it does each time touch us profoundly when we get good feedback from you in that way. Also, if you have any feedback of any sort, no matter if good or not, if you have questions that you would like us to answer, if you have subjects that you're interested in, please feel free to write us an email at awalkintheheart@gmail.com, and we'll get to it when we get to it, but we'll get to it for sure at one point. That being said, you sign us off.
First love, then do.
Bye. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra, and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.